it's that old saying, oh yes, there's a time and place for everything, and it's called college. Campus days are halcyon days for, well, most of us, which means then that campus cities are pretty happy cities. And so when I found myself in Pune at the insistence of a very nostalgic producer, I was surprised to find myself feeling a few pangs and thought that I could actually consider revisiting the significant, though largely and justifiably unsung, culinary rite of passage that I refer to as college khana. Yes, food fit for teenage appetites, the kind that a generation of Archie readers are entirely responsible for, and let's be honest, the kind no self-respecting adult would admit to enjoy. So then, when revisiting an age of excess, what does one do? Well, if you're smart, you'll start slow.
So after all that, I have to begin with a bit of an admission. My first stop is in fact not one that caters to college appetites alone. As a matter of fact, old or young or pretty much anyone in between, ask them where to eat and they'll say if you're in Pune, you need to come to Kayani's.
Kayani Bakery is an extraordinary place. For years, nay decades now, it has been crowding them in. And yes, I mean crowding them in. Getting to the counter on any day, on any morning, requires some serious navigational skills. Everyone wants a slice of this particular pie. But before we get to what that is, it's worth mentioning that Kayani's hasn't changed in the 60-odd years of its existence. It does what it does, and what it does best are Shrewsbury biscuits.
We started with Shrewsbury only. In those days, our dad and all used to make rich plum cake and all this thing. But now rich plum, we have continued with the chocolate walnut cake. Chocolate walnut cake, rich plum to band ho gaya. Chocolate walnut cake hai, then the tutti frutti cake hai.
Yes, despite its claim to fame, there are plenty of other treats to try, and so we'll get to the star in just a bit. First up, a mention of the marvelously moist, slightly sweet milk bread that they still sell for 10 rupees a loaf. And then there's the mava cake, exactly what you would expect it to be, and the chocolate walnut cake that they're so proud of. Dense, dark, delightfully out of date. There are savouries too, each well worth trying. The surti biscuit, or better yet, the curry biscuit.
The measure of good crunch is never in how something looks, it's in how it sounds. Listen. Will not tell it all.
And now, of course, in the old tradition of saving the best for last, there's Shrewsbury biscuit. It hasn't changed since the day it started, and the cooking style hasn't either.
With my dad and uncle, I have not carried it forward. I just go on mixing it.
These delicious bites of butter, flour and sugar are the reason for Kayani's enduring success. The pretenders can try, but no one can match the joy of their fresh, out-of-the-oven, golden bites of goodness.
Shrewsbury biscuit is one of those rare animals that not just manages to meet the hype that surrounds it, but year after year, decade upon decade, they manage to outstrip it as well. It is always better than you remembered it being.
The only concession to the times actually seems to be this, and even that's old world enough, it doesn't matter. The chocolate-flavoured Shrewsbury.
I admit that I remain loyal completely to the original, but I have to say this is a good chocolate biscuit. And if you don't believe me, if you think, those of you who haven't been here, that I'm exaggerating, get a load of the crowd behind me. This is the scene all day, every day. In fact, today things are fairly civilized. I have been told that if you come here on certain days, there are cat fights over the last packet. I can't judge them, I'd be jumping in first myself.
So yes, this may seem forced in this particular episode, but believe me, old or young, college or corporate, this works anytime, anywhere. But for now, my haul must wait, because the next stop is one that, well, let's just say caters squarely to the under 25ers. Burger, as you can tell if you look at the sign, was formerly known as Burger King. The name was adjusted, shall we say, following objections by the fast food giant. It's happily, though, nothing like its former namesake. Big sprawl of a space, deliberately campus and canteen-like in feel. And clearly it works. Which is why it was with some trepidation that I sat down to the kind of feast I haven't enjoyed in well over a decade. And yep, that's why.
A lot of students around in Pune. Like we've gone through the student days ourselves and knowing, what we like and value for money. So we don't really concentrate on the frills and thrills in the place. Yeah. Concentrate on the products, where they have a real hearty meal. Yeah.
Alright then, let's see if I'm tough enough to revisit the good old days. To start then, the regular burger, cheesy, greasy, no frills, no fuss. 1 chicken, 1 beef. This is the very embodiment of cheap and cheerful. Look around and you'll see no bad thing that. And by the way, it's worth noting that vegetarians need not be scared of coming in. They don't have much for them, but what they do is surprisingly effective.
I've spent many years of my life turning up my nose at the very idea of a vegetarian or potato-filled burger. As far as I'm concerned, they should not exist. And here is again one of the exceptions to the rule. It's a really nice potato patty. They've laced it with cheese, which I guess makes all the difference.
And as for portions, if you thought the regular burgers I had enjoyed up till now were substantial, allow me to introduce you to the plate-sized pile they call the King Burger. This giant portion should be too large for anyone outside the pages of Riverdale and Pop Dates.
I mean, if anyone has a jaw big enough to accommodate a burger this size in a single bite, they might consider trying out for a Guinness record. Also, the lucky one is because that's a good burger.
It's greasy, juicy and really actually quite surprising considering if I was 20, I would probably live on this.
So the very size of this burger should tell you everything you need to know about the place we're in. Add to that it costs a princely 60 rupees, and you can understand why every seat behind me is filling up fast.
They want value for money. They want good burgers at a reasonable cost where their pockets can afford. At the same time they have a good meal, because there are a lot of outstation students living over here, so it's very cost friendly.
Speaking of paisa vasool, they also serve subs filled with enormous, positively incomprehensible combinations. This one with different kinds of sausage and salami all stuffed into pools of mayo, or this one which throws in a few extras and then on top of that adds some scrambled eggs as well. If this is not made with hangovers in mind, I'll eat it all.
I mean, it's true. It's a world and eating style all its own. Nobody, I think, past the age of 27, being generous, could justify the kind of excess that I have indulged in over here.
The surprise though, which probably has more to do with my ears than anything else, was the fish burger, which unsurprisingly emerged as my favourite. All in all, I must say that this is the kind of place that is in equal parts terrifying for sheer greasy excess and also reassuring for the very same reason. Though I will admit, rarely if ever have I seen this much burger for such few bucks. And since any more time spent here and I may not live to regret it, it's on to another local haunt for me. This too is the kind you tackle at your own risk. Nandos Parathas. Yes, what's college life without big platters of butter-laden flatbread? Nandos, though, is not your usual paratharie. Once you take your seat, surprisingly charming despite its location on a busy-ish main street, you will discover that there are parathas on offer here that you couldn't have dreamt of.
Oh. Okay. There must be 40 to 50 different types of parathas to choose from. I admit, despite all my excessive indulgence, I am not man enough to try even a fraction of them. But there are some very interesting combinations. So let's see how we can kick things up a notch.
So right, despite that, I figure the measure remain the classics, and so I'll start with, well, what they started with.
पुणे में पब्स बहुत थे, तो हमारा वो उस टाइम में लेट नाइट खुला रहता था, तो इसके लिए हमारा फेमस हो गया और उनमें हमारे बोर्ड पे नाम भी नहीं था, पहले सिर्फ आलू पराठा था, फिर वैरायटी बढ़ाते गए आस्ते आस्ते, अभी 40 पराठा से मिक्स करेंगे तो 80 पराठा होता है.
It's true, the aloo paratha then gives me a clue as to the secret of their success. It arrives swimming in butter with just a little extra for good measure. The same naturally goes for the paneer one. They're crisp, dripping in fat, just what a paratha should be.
So, places that tend to be a little too creative, I find usually are compensating for a sort of certain lack in technique or skill elsewhere. This is not the case over here. The classic parathas are as good as any I have had across the country. It probably has something to do with the 50 odd grams of butter that have been used in each paratha. Either way, I'm not complaining. Have a bite and neither will you.
And then there are the more unusual ones, like a cheese paratha. Once again, an education in the art of excess.
I mean this in the most respectful, affectionate sort of way, but it's like they're trying to kill you a coronary at a time. This cheese pizza is one of the heaviest, richest, most lavish bites I've had in a career. People with heavy, delicious, lavish bites.
But the one I couldn't wait to try was even more unexpected.
पिज़्ज़ा में कंपटीशन रहता है तो हमने बोला इसमें भी करके देखेंगे कैसा बनता है. ट्राई किया, पसंद आता है लोगों को तो इसके लिए कंटिन्यू किया. 2-4 जनों को खिला के देखा भी कैसा लगता है.
Yes, a pizza paratha stuffed with olives, jalapenos and chili. And no, you didn't hear me wrong. That's what they do.
It's not a combination I personally would go for, and yet I can see how it works. It's once again, I mean, their formula is so simple. They have a great greasy paratha on the outside and they stuff whatever they think you like inside. And if that happens to be cheese, olives and jalapenos, you're going to be pretty damn happy with it.
But the real surprise, the real treat was still to come. The paratha that proved they haven't forgotten their roots as a post-party pick-me-up. A chocolate paratha. Coated in Nutella, bursting with dark chocolate, it is, I kid you not, all kinds of awesome.
It's really borderline genius. I may not be around next week to bring you another edition of this show, but I will rest well and so should you in knowing that I went round in a jolly good cause.
Talk about a formula, paratha, pizza, cheese, chocolate. No wonder college kids can't get enough. And of course, it's not just college kids.
Finally, I may have met my match. The one dish so rich, I am incapable of doing anything afterwards. So, I think it's a good time. We'll just take a break. I'll see you back in just a bit.